Welcome to Click for IB Biology. Our overall topic is evolution and speciation, and now we're actually moving on to look at some of the theoretical explanations for speciation. And in this example, in this video, we're going to be looking at allopatric speciation mechanisms in chimpanzees. There's a blank version of this presentation. That's a PDF. It's linked in down below in the description. You can download that, annotate that with your own notes as we go through. And then at the end, why not take the 10-question quiz, checking out the answers, because this, of course, is established as the most efficient method for studying any topic, questions following your learning. So we're looking at chimpanzee populations. There are two major groups of chimpanzees. There's the Bonobos chimpanzees of the Congo, which are here in green. And then there are a number of other chimpanzee populations. There's the central, there's the central chimpanzee population here in pink in the African continent. And then there's the eastern chimpanzees here, and way over here in the Senegal area, we have the western chimpanzees. So at the moment, the central, eastern, and western chimpanzee are regarded as a single species, so that in principle, this means that they have yet to go through speciation. In contrast, these three chimpanzee groups are different to the Bonobos chimp, which is now regarded as a separate species of the chimpanzee. The mechanism for the evolution of the chimpanzee features heavily in the principles of allopatric mechanism of evolution, in which there is a geographic barrier to the movement of animals and therefore an isolation of the populations of a species from each other. And this particular geographic barrier is the Congo River, which we can see highlighted in here in blue, surrounding the Congo region and isolating the Bonobos chimp from the other chimpanzee groups. Let's look at the theoretical basis of allopatric speciation. On the left-hand side, we have a gene pool, as previously described in this part of the course. This gene pool, of course, has allele frequencies for the different alleles of the, let's call this the founder population, the population that we begin with. And so that has the classic idea of all of the individuals contributing to this gene pool. And then we need to introduce a geographic feature which will cause isolation of the populations. And so this is illustrated here with the barrier being introduced here, and creating reproductive isolation of this population. Let's call this population A from population B. Now, the event in the chimpanzees is believed to have occurred approximately 1 to 2 million years ago. And of course, this particular is in the example of the splitting of the chimpanzee groups of the pre-existing species, which is here. So when this is split, the Congo is believed to have begun its formation somewhere in the region of 1 to 2 million years ago. And of course, that is not coincidental to the evolution of the different species of chimps that we have today. And so in theory then, in allopatric speciation, we have the geographic barrier as shown here, splitting the population into two reproductively isolated groups. Now then what happens is that in these two locations, the populations are subject to different selection pressures. and this will result in a change in allele frequencies, but a change also in the actual alleles. So mutation will accumulate in the populations separated from each other, and because there's no gene flow between the two populations, those new alleles do not spread to the two different populations. If this isolation, this reproductive isolation, is allowed to carry on long enough, then what happens is we would describe that as there being a speciation event, and that the two populations A and B can no longer reproduce. So just to reiterate the particular example that we have here, this is an image of a Bonobos chimpanzee. Its characteristics are those selected to operate in dense rainforest, where the levels of predation are particularly low. And so we have the species name is given as Panpaniscus, and the allopatric mechanism, the geographical barrier, is the formation of the Congo River approximately 1 to 2 million years ago. The reproductive isolation of the ancestors, the ancestral population, left the bonobos in the dense rainforest, subject to those selection pressures, so that alleles will accumulate and allele frequencies will change, creating a reproductive isolation from the Pantroglodytes, which is the classic chimpanzee that we know, here exemplified by the eastern chimp and the central chimp. In these locations, the ecosystem is quite different. There tends to be all sorts of different variable types of forest here, as very distinct from the dense forests of the southern Congo region. And so the animals have evolved different characteristics, as we can see here. In fact, the Troglodytes chimp is actually considerably larger. It's been argued that the Bonobos chimps are more social, more empathic in their behavior. So not only physiological structural differences, but also in behavioral distances. And now we have reproductive isolation. Students may be thinking about whether or not the central chimps, eastern chimps, and the western chimps are also in the process of speciation. And that's the feature, that's the structure of ongoing research, but for the moment, they remain reproductively connected. So if we then place the context of the divergence of the chimpanzee from the bonobo, this is approximately, the last common ancestor is believed to be somewhere in 500,000 to 1 million years ago, which is sometime after the formation of the Congo River, but the accumulation of time provides you with the accumulation of alleles, which would create the reproductive isolation. This figure here is derived from studies on mitochondria, whereas other studies suggest a 1 million year ago speciation event. And of course, the two groups, the chimpanzee and the bonobo, are diverging from the humans at approximately 5 to 7 million years ago, and of course from the gorillas at 8 to 10 million years ago, and from the orangutan around about 12 to 16 million years ago, in studies suggest. And so all of these groups, of course, are reproductively isolated. Whether the chimpanzee will diverge into 3 other groups, evolutionary time will tell. So the key takeaway from this particular presentation is that allopatric speciation is isolation, reproductive isolation through geographic barriers. The next video is a link to sympatric speciation mechanisms. Then there's a chance to subscribe to the channel, and of course the shortcut to all of the playlists on evolutionary and speciation videos that were presented here. Thank you for listening.